beginning at 6:31 p.m. This is the normally scheduled Norton Conservation Commission meeting. And as with, we are obligated to read the preamble as a temporary suspension of the normal stipulations of the open meeting law. So I will go ahead and do that. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 1, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducting specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing / meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion and virtually, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. And I'll be reminding people as to how to raise their hand at that portion of the meeting, but quite frankly, just barging on in is allowed if needed. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible as after the meeting. So we have our director, John Thomas, participating tonight, myself, Julian Kadish, chair, Ron O'Reilly, Carrie Schneider, Lisa Carosa, vice chair, and I see Dan Pearson has been able to join us. And then we have our assistant, Megan, also participating. So with that, we will begin our new public hearing, DE file number 250-1092. It's a notice of intent for 0 South Washington Street, filed by Stephen Ross, concerning proposed project for construction of a billboard within 100 feet of a wetland resource area. And we have a representative of that project.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, members of the commission, my name is David Manoogian. I'm an attorney with offices in Attleboro. I'm here tonight representing the applicant, Stephen Ross, and his company, American Outdoor Advertising. With us also tonight is Rick Reed from Lighthouse Engineering and Evan Watson from W Engineering. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Rick and have him give you an overview of the notice of intent, and then the members can ask any questions at any time they would like.
Who's going to need screen sharing capabilities?
Yeah, and
Evan?
Yeah, I'll do the presentation.
Okay,
that's fine.
You have co-host.
Thank you very much. For the record, it's Evan Watson with W Engineering, representing the applicant. I work with Lighthouse Land Surveying that did the survey. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works out right. All right, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
not quite yet.
Yes, I'm all set.
Okay, so I just have Google Earth on here so we can understand where this project is. It's on South Washington Street. It's near the Taunton line, adjacent to the Mild Standish Industrial Park. It's on an undeveloped parcel in between two developed parcels. And the important part for the sign company is it's right here. And that's important if you want to put up a sign. So I can show a couple pictures of project site. So where we're looking to put the sign is actually, it's more or less already cleared. We might have to do a little bit of edge work here, but it's being used here just as a little grassy area next to the hotel property. And then this is what we would like to do, is have this sign. The reason why we're picking this exact spot is it pokes up above the trees right here, and we have a great view from both southbound lanes. Project right now has been filed with the. Oh, go ahead. Is it okay to continue?
Well, a couple of the graphics, a couple of the graphics were out of sequence, but roughly, there's another sign out there, and I'm wondering if that's after or before, if you're going on 495 south.
I believe there's another sign on this property here. So that would be further north. Yeah, that's the sign.
Further north, okay. So that's pretty close to the on-ramp from 123 then.
So there's a couple of things at play here. So we are in front of both the planning board and the selectmen to receive this permit. And in there, they have a few criteria regarding that information. And then once we get through our local permitting, it's my understanding that we then go to the state for their permit for a sign. And at that level of permitting, that's where they have criteria for the exit ramp and distance between signs. And correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I believe that those criteria will.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for the audience. So it looks like this is actually not near the 123 on-ramp. It's actually very close to the Bay Road exit.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it's we have to be 1,000 feet or more away from the existing sign, which we are. And we're also 1,000 feet away. We have a 1,000-foot radius that we have to comply with, so that there are no residences within that 1,000-foot radius, and we've complied with that also.
Is this a standard billboard or an electronic billboard?
Electronic. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, thank you. So here's our site plan. And what we're looking to do is put the billboard, and
When you're cutting out, so I think they missed some of it.
yeah, somebody, my screen's asking me to admit somebody into the room, but I think that's because I have privileges. So I think that's squared away now. Okay, so I'll continue. So the billboard doesn't actually take up a lot of space on the ground. I show here maybe a 200 square foot zone, but I expanded it a little bit more than what it will likely be. The foundation will essentially just need to be a 10 by 10 pad. That's one option. The other option would be if we get a good soil test back, if we have sandy soils, which I expect we will, that they would actually just vibrate the pole or the pile style foundation into the ground, and we wouldn't need anything other than the actual case coming out of the ground. The billboard itself is planned to be 90 feet tall. The reason for that is so that we won't need to do any vegetation management. Trees around here grow up to about 80 feet tall max. Trees here are actually a little bit lower than that right now. So the goal here would be to have as little maintenance as possible and the most little disturbance to the buffer zone as possible. So again, within this cleared area, we might need to take down a few trees around the periphery, if anything. We'd put propose erosion control around the limit of work. And there would really, I think in my memo, I indicated that we wouldn't creating any new stormwater. So stormwater is generated when you add impervious area. So we're only adding at maximum the bowl itself and maybe a 10 by 10 area around it. And to do any additional stormwater, we would basically need to cut down more trees and disturb the area a lot more. So, and there's no traffic, so there's not any TSS being brought to the site or anything of that nature. So it's a pretty benign impact to site and to the buffer zone. And as David mentioned, here's an overview of the whole site. This really is the ideal location because it brings us close enough to Route 495, keeps us far enough away from any other billboard sign, and it keeps us outside of the radius for residential properties. So, and it's mostly clear already. So it's a great spot. Just that
All right.
we're within, I think, 50 feet of the wetlands. So that's why we're here tonight.
All right. So for orientation, for the whole site that you have illustrated, as I'm looking at it, it would be just to the right. That lot just to the right of yes, is that the extended stay facility?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh, I can zoom here. If that mark there is our proposed sign, this is the extended stays.
Okay. Yes. All right. Got it. So, actually, a question to John Thomas. This looks like to my eye, a fairly limited impact on the wetland resource issues. Do you have any things you would point out to us with regard to this? I mean, from what they propose, they're going to have an either-or approach to securing this in the ground, depending on soil tests. So I'm assuming our conditions will need to address both possibilities unless they want to continue until the information is available to make the choice of which method they're going to use.
Yeah, that's an option we could put in an order of conditions. We can also limit it to the approved limit of work. Whatever they're doing within that approved limit of work area is either option A or option B. The other concern that I did have was, they are going to be going on someone else's property to get access to this. So that's really the caveat for this whole entire project, is the surety that they're going to be able to secure access through the extended stay. If not, they're going to Yep.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, the location where the sign is actually on the Musto property. Extended stay is actually encroaching upon the Musto property. So we don't anticipate any access issues. But if you want to condition that in any way, that's fine also. And we would also agree with Mr. Thomas that rather than continuing this matter, I think you could just address it with appropriate conditions.
So can you show where that access is indeed on Musto's property? Because right now it looks like it's on the abutting property. Right,
So-
now you have the property line there, right?
This is the property line through here. Yep.
Right, and you're showing access off the property right now, right?
So right now we're working on where the final access is going to be. So the procedure that we have to go through, if you're familiar with like getting a state Mass DOT permit, before you can file for that final permit, you need to have all of your local permits in place. So before we can actually go to the state and get the permit for this billboard, we need to have approval from selectmen, from planning board, and from this board, conservation. Once we get that,
There's no need for the selectmen to approve it. It's simply a planning board matter, and then conservation, because they have jurisdiction because it's within the buffer zone. But
thank you.
The state, once the local permits are in place, the state would also have a say with respect to access, so that we would respectfully request that the issue of access could be addressed by this commission as a condition which states that the access shall be determined by or as allowed by the Mass Department of Transportation and Mass Highway.
But, okay, there's two different things here. The first is access to construct it, which it looks like you're accessing it through the abutting property. I'm seeing a property line and I'm seeing what I think is the edge of curb to the east of that. That tells me it's off the property, right? So to construct it, I guess it's a black and white answer. When you access it for construction, whose property are you on?
I believe we'll be on the Musto property, but Mr. Ross is there. I don't know, Steve, if you
Doesn't
could
look like it.
address the lady's question.
Yeah, I can address that as well. I can speak a little further to that. So I know Steve is in talks with the hotel property about getting access to construct. We also have here, we front on South Washington Street. So if that avenue of getting access from butter wasn't available, we could bring in a construction access from South Washington Street. However, we didn't go through the design of that quite yet because we don't have permission or we don't know if we can secure the permit for this from the state. So similar to getting a highway access permit, we would permit the actual use, we would permit the actual design, we would permit the sign itself. Then once we have all the details worked out at the state level permitting, then we'll have the final design done. Because when we bring in the access road, if necessary, we're going to have an access road that can accommodate the type of equipment that could put up the sign. And so that's going to get hammered out once we file for our final permit. Then we'll have all the information in place. And if needed, if we need to come in through the site and we're anywhere within a jurisdictional area, we would have to file a new notice of intent for that. So I would expect that we would have a notice of intent for the actual sign itself. And if it comes that we need a separate access to get to the sign, we would come in with a new notice of intent for any of that work.
But even to construct it, I guess what I'm seeing here is that you're on somebody else's property. Did you include them as locus? You can't get to this until you cannot get to construct this sign without traversing somebody else's property. Is that not correct? So
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, then show me how somebody gets in, please, because I'm not seeing it.
Well, that's what with all due respect, that's what Mr. Watson was addressing.
So
We're in talks.
So you're not asking for access. You have no access right now to even build it. You have no permission to access to build it.
We have no
correct?
permission from, no, that's incorrect. We have no permission from extended stay to access the site of the sign through extended stay's property. We do have access on South Washington Street through the Musto property, which we have a right to access, but we haven't designed that yet because we don't know which way we're going to come in.
So I think the simple solution here is very, very simple, is to show two alternatives with access, is to show one, having, the preferred access, which is from extended stay, but then, access B or access 2, whatever you want to call it, would be coming off of South Washington and staying outside conservation jurisdiction. So that way it doesn't trigger any sort of need for a permit, as it looks like you can get very close with an excavator or whatever sort of machinery that you need to get all the materials to along the easterly boundary of this property to get to that limit of work area. If you needed
Still
to.
have a small portion of it in jurisdiction. So
Yeah,
my recommendation, when we issue the order of conditions, is to say that it does not approve any access, and they are to either amend the order or come before us with a final access road. Okay.
And that's, Mr. Chair, through you, that's what I was going to suggest. I think a condition that simply states at the discretion of the board, commission, obviously, that the Conservation Commission has to approve the construction access for the sign, and that if it triggers the jurisdiction of the commission, then a new filing will have to be made by the applicant.
Yes, I think that will satisfy the concerns of everyone, that will be a condition.
I guess while I'm at it, so when were the wetlands flagged and who flagged them?
LEC flagged them.
Okay, if you could add a note to the plan indicating who flagged it and the date of flagging, that would be appreciated. John Thomas, we need to add a condition if they decide to go with, I assume it's going to be a cast in place 10 by 10 had the need for a concrete washout area. And I think we need to clarify the trees to be removed, because on one hand you're showing a new tree limit, but the photo of the site showed that it was pretty much cleared. So, and you mentioned, a tree or two may be trimmed or having to take down. So what direction is the contractor going to get is what I'm focusing on now. We don't want to leave this plan up to them. They're going to physically measure it and take out a clearing around that.
No, that's an important question. So we do need a little bit of elbow room to get around, especially while it's constructed. So we have a limit of work staked here. We have our erosion control staked, and we show it. This tree line here is represents where the grass area is now. So it would just be these trees within.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that you give, is there a minimum distance that you need? I think we need a dimension from that proposed to the new tree line so the contractor doesn't overcut in that area, if you could.
I would ask that what I typically do is put a condition that this limit of work, this erosion control line, be staked out as a limit of work line by a survey crew prior to any work being done. And then if you guys want, you can have a representative come out and inspect that line to make sure that you guys could sign off on. You put up erosion control.
That's typically how we handle things.
Even better. Okay.
And from what I gathered, if you actually use the vibratory method of driving the support into the ground, you may not have to clear at all. Is that a possibility?
I still think we would want a little bit of elbow room here to work on the site. Again, these will be correcting, so a little bit of elbow room would be helpful, regardless of what method we use.
All right.
So you mentioned that it was electronic. Do you have to tap into the grid anywhere or an existing utility? And is that shown?
That's not shown. We do have 3-phase power out here on South Washington Street, so we would be able to run that tied in. And my intent was to design that along with any construction access that we have. And we'd have to work with the utility company to see if there was any additional infrastructure that they needed, like a transformer by the road or anything like that.
Okay. So John Thomas, if we can add that along with access, utility provisions for utility connections.
Noted.
Thank you.
So we do have a file number, it looks like. So what is the preference? It sounds like you have a lot of issues to be worked out, at least with the planning board. So that it doesn't sound like you have any kind of urgency in getting the orders completed, the order of conditions. Is that a fair statement?
Partially, we're meeting with the planning board next week. I believe it's Tuesday or Wednesday. My memory escapes me. We expect that public hearing will close then, but we respectfully request that unless the commission needs more data that we're not aware of, that you close this public hearing and then issue your order of conditions in due course.
So you don't think there's anything that's going to precipitate or come out of the planning board process that would dictate an update to this plan?
No,
leave it open?
we've told them that this sign really has to go in this location. The only thing that we have to address before the planning board at our next meeting is the issue of light emanating from the sign and an explanation of the louver process that we have on the sign to limit light on the surrounding areas. But I think after that issue is addressed, I expect the planning board hearing to close. We do not expect the sign to change location for several reasons. Number one, we're outside of the 1,000-foot radius for residences at this location. Number two, if we move the sign further west, we're going to have more wetlands problems, and we don't want to disturb any more of the wetlands than we have to. And we think this is the best location for the sign, not only from my client's perspective, but for the environment also. So that I don't expect anything to come out of the planning board that would necessitate to keep this public hearing open.
All right, and
And
then,
I would just ask that you add the reference note to the wetland, the date of the delineation of the company, and then we're fine.
That's fine.
all right, so it sounds like it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other with regard to closing tonight. I mean, John, do you have any hesitation about, I mean, it's 2 weeks with regard to our next meeting, and well within the 21 days to issue an order of conditions. So any objection to closing tonight, John?
I have none. I mean, obviously, it sounds like Lisa wanted some recommendations for the plan to be updated. So per receiving those from our office, I think we can definitely make sure that we can condition this and the commission can vote on this evening.
Okay. So that being said, unless any other commission members have questions, and at this time we can open this up to any participants in the meeting. And in order to, you can raise your hand by going to the reactions button. There's a hand raising option. And just looking at the participants list, I do not see any hands raised. And if anybody, oh, there is a hand raised. Peter, you have a question?
Yes. I see these I see the billboard on 495 a lot of times, and it is beautiful, and I'm in favor of another billboard in front of 495, and they're similar to one I saw on 24 in West Bridgewater and Brockton.
All right, well, just be aware though, we're kind of restricted to the Wetlands Protection Act concerns, so the aesthetics of it, that's a different issue. Perhaps planning board more.
May I just ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Just for the heck of it, I assume that there is no great significant environmental difference between an electric signboard and a billboard rather, and one that is not electrified. Is that?
I'm not sure I got that, Dan. So
I assume that there is no significant environmental difference between a billboard that is electrified, an electric billboard, and one that is not electrified.
well, I think, most billboards have lighting, whether the display itself is illuminated. In other words, they have so I think that the concern is excessive light being displayed into the environment, particularly vertically, that can disrupt migrations. That's been within our purview in the past, but I think that's also covered by planning board. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that would be the only difference, where the kind of huge lights that illuminate the face of the billboard are less controllable on a non-electronic, whereas an electronic I'm assuming there's some directional component to the display. Is that the sense?
That's correct. And we also have louvers that will be installed to control the the direction of the light emission. And these are LED lights. So the chair is correct. We do have considerably more control than if it was just a typical sign with strobe lights on it.
All right.
And I might add that it's 100% better than the paper ones, because we had issues at the Y where they took the paper off and it ended up in the drink. They just let it go in the wet one and they had to go clean it up. So I was happy to know that this was going to be electronic. So
No more. I'm convinced.
Well, we all have our personal preferences. At night, from my point of view, the less light, the better. And I think the astronomers will tell you that too, but that's another issue. All right, so I don't see any more hands up. And unless there are further questions, we can consider a motion to close the public hearing for file number 250-1092.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by Carrie. Going to do a roll call vote as is usual, starting with Ron.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, and then we have Lisa and Dan Pearson
Aye.
and Carrie.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. The meeting is closed, and we will be issuing an order of conditions at our next meeting, which is on January 24th in 2 weeks. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, members of the commission and Mr. Chair, and stay safe, and hopefully we get through this and we can meet in person someday.
Someday.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So we're moving on to so we made the transition from new public hearings to public hearings that have been brought before us before. So our first continued public hearing is file number 250-1091 concerning the fields at Norton High School, 6466 West Main Street. And we previously reviewed this project on 12/13. So we have a representative of the applicant.
My name is Bree Sullivan. I'm with Gale Associates, and I am representing the Town of Norton school system.
All right.
So I received the peer review comments 45 minutes ago. Thank you, John. And John received them shortly before that. So I haven't had a chance to review them. The plan is to review them as well as review and comment and make changes to the plans and comment on the commission's questions and comments and get that turned into the commission in a complete package. A couple of things. I've been working on some of the questions and comments. I was actually out at the site today looking at the fence line and looking at the tree removal requirements for the 25-foot zone. It was very cold out there. So I did some of that today, and I've been working on the comments, and we've been working on the plans as well to address the commission's concerns and questions. And my hope is that we can get something submitted to you, which would be by next week for the meeting on the 24th. Will the commission, since we have a holiday next Monday, would the commission consider allowing a submittal on the Tuesday instead of the Monday?
I guess that would be a question for John.
That's fine.
Okay, so the goal is I'm going to try to get everything done by next Tuesday, submitted to the commission. Obviously, if I can't do that, I will contact you. Also, does Gail have permission to contact the peer reviewer directly to work through their comments?
It's my understanding that you would. It works easier that way.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't talked to Steve about it, but on most circumstances, we've done that before, and it seems to work a little bit more efficiently.
Okay, I mean, typically I like to ask permission of the commission because, you know, they're the ones, you're the ones ordering the peer review. So I just wanted to be sure that I was on the record with that. So if you're okay with that, then I will work directly with the peer reviewer. So other than that, unless there's any further comments or questions, I don't really have anything to present tonight. I want to do that all at once. So we can take care of everything as efficiently as possible.
I have a comment, if now is the time.
Sure, go ahead.
This fill / artificial turf, I think we cannot allow it to go in. It has these noxious chemicals, such as, I believe, PFAS or any of this business. I certainly wouldn't vote for anything if it has carcinogens, and I would. I have been doing some reading, thanks to another of our commission who was on top of her game, and I did the word carcinogenic, and I also saw that some of these rubber pellets can make their way into the drinking water. I'm not talking the whole pellet. Often you don't need the whole pellet to create a problem. These things can get into the body and also into the drinking water in various ways. And so I would, just for the moment, suggest that you consider lining the field with coconut or something that's from nature, or even better than artificial turf would be actual turf, and real grass. And I don't see what's wrong with that. I understand that you don't have to water artificial turf, but there it is. I wouldn't want to see a carcinogen go in there. And 70 years ago, we thought it was fine to spray everything with DDT. You know, spray it right on the kids to keep the. But anyway, I'm not saying that this is the same thing, but I think there is some research has been done. Whether or not the EPA shows or indicates that it has a spine on it or not, beside the point. It seems like there could be carcinogens, and it could be problematic.
So it is a question for John. I'm assuming this concern falls under pollution control of a project. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that seems reasonable.
All right. So, I mean, I think this is a valid concern of the commission, and I'm assuming it's also a concern of parents and students that would participate in the utilization of this. So I know, you know, I'm not certain exactly what the process was with regard to choosing this material versus other materials, but maybe that can be revisited with regard to those people that are making those choices.
So we have reached out to the school about the different options that are available, and we've had a conversation with them. They are interested in learning more, so we've started that conversation about alternative infills and what's available to them. And we have designed and provided all the alternative infills over the time that Gail has been working with fields. We have used all of the alternative infills in addition to the rubber that we typically use in fields, which is widely used in the area. Your communities around Norton have fields installed right now with the SBR rubber. It's not for everybody, and we'll certainly give the community what suits them the best and what they want to see. We have no problem with that. So we have started that conversation with them. We actually do a presentation on alternative infills for our clients, and that's one of the things we've offered to the school, and they are interested. And so we're continuing that conversation as we do this review.
All right. It seems like it's an issue that needs to be addressed for successful resolution of the project.
I will convey the commission's concerns to the school.
Okay, and certainly we understand. I see there's a hand up next to the name of Sherry Cohen. So if you want to ask your question as well.
Sure. I'm Sherry Cohen. I'm a member of the Norton School Committee. Just a quick question, Bree. Not sure if you know or somebody from the schools is on. What does Wheaton College use for their turf?
I do not know. I mean, I can find out pretty easily.
Just Wheaton College uses the chrome rubber that we're talking about.
Okay, so the same fill that we're looking to use, Wheaton College uses it, and that's not an issue for the town?
Well, I think specifically it, I am presuming that it has to do with the proximity to wetlands with regard to Wheaton College's facility.
I can speak for myself to that. I can't speak for my fellow members. I don't remember the Wheaton fill coming before me in the time that I've been here, but you can rest assured that if that matter does come while I'm here, I would say the exact same thing. I don't, and I think it's reasonable not to want a carcinogen on the field.
I would have to review exactly where the buffer zone was on the Wheaton playing fields to know.
Julian, I'll take care of that. I'll take a look through the files and see when the project for the Wheaton Fields was performed and see how long ago it was done, and provide the commission and the public the information just to kind of circumvent this discussion.
Well, regardless of when it was approved, who approved it, the science has advanced, at least in the last 5 to 7 years, where there are now lawsuits. All you have to do is Google it. It is a tremendous amount of information. They're doing testing of the water quality now around chrome rubber based fields. It's exploded in the last 5 to 7 years, and they're no longer recommending it. If you look at towns inside of 128 in Massachusetts, they're no longer allowing it. You look at, I think it was Sherborne, who had a very large back and forth case, whatever, about the use of that type of field in their town. So it's just a matter of information. I mean, the commission doesn't have a preference, but if I had a child that was of school age, I would not want them on that field. I would not send them on that field. So it's not in my interest. I'm throwing this out to the taxpayers of Norton so that they can make an informed decision on what type of field that they want to see.
Yeah.
I have no interest in this either way, but I think the town needs to make an informed decision.
I should just clarify though, this is a Conservation Commission matter because it affects drinking water. We can argue about the extent to which that's the case, and you can say other towns use it, and microbeads are widely used, even though they put plastic in the water. But frankly, I don't care what other towns do. If it's wrong, it's wrong, and there it is. But maybe it's not. Maybe
and certainly
maybe this is not enough to. Maybe it's not a cause for harm. But it sounds. I read that there was a study of goalies done, and high school goalies who got cancer from this because, of course, goalies spend more time on the turf. It's part of their job. They're good goalies, and I'd be happy to. I will. I mean that it was a study that was mentioned in a study in something that I read, but I will be happy to provide the reference. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think particularly the point that the information base is changing and is advancing is a very valid thing. There are many products where that's been the case, that they were considered fine until new information was available. So that's, I think, impacting this discussion. So I see, I think before we go back to you, Sherry, we're going to go to Aaron Sumner, who has a hand up.
Yes, I'm the athletic director at the high.
Okay.
I'm the athletic director at the high school. Just so people know, and I know, Dan, you spoke about you don't care what other towns are doing, and that's fine. Our students right now are playing on these fields with crumb rubber almost every time they go to another school, other than maybe 2 schools in our league that have a different infill. Taunton is putting in another brand new field right now as we speak with crumb rubber. They just put in a new field with crumb rubber. So to say that you can't put it in or towns aren't allowing it to happen, it's a choice they're making, and that's fine. But I just want you to know that our students are playing on these fields all the time.
Absolutely. Doesn't mean it's the best product for our kids, though. That's what we need you to consider. That's all. Again, I have no vested interest in this. It's not my kid playing, but I wouldn't want them to. And I think the town just needs to make an informed decision and not weigh it against who's doing what, and the fact that Wheaton has one, Taunton. I don't care if we're surrounded by it. We need to make our own informed decision.
Well, what's more, just to that, it would be great if we were known as the one town that had a field covering that wasn't carcinogenic, as it might turn out.
And to add to that, it's just because other towns are doing it doesn't really insulate you against an uncertain future with regard to class action suits when things become more defined about this material. I think if this were kind of like way out in left field, the idea that this could be a harmful material, but it really doesn't sound like it is way out in left field. And I think we have to be mindful of when we put out this expenditure as, the town and taxpayer, that it's going to come with perhaps significant liabilities then in the future that may dwarf the current concerns about extra costs for alternative materials. So, just to consider in your discussions with both school committee and with Gale Associates. So, Sherry, your hand is up if you want to go ahead and add what you'd like.
Thank you. So I just want to mention that, I think I understand what you're saying, and I actually have Googled it, and I've seen things on both sides of this. So it's really hard to know what is completely accurate, especially when other towns do make certain decisions. you know, again, we have to be cognizant of the fact that the town has voted at a certain budget. So to have to go back to taxpayers and say, hey, you know, in conversation with the Conservation Commission, they want us to have a certain fill or recommending a certain fill, you know, we have to keep in mind that there's a cost associated with these things as well. You know, we've had to put more money into doing a peer review, which fine, we understand, we'll do that. But, you know, I just wonder, Bree, where this is your business, you know, I'm sure Gail has been around for many, many years at this point. If you have information, I understand listen, Norton as a school district, we're not followers or leaders, and have been for a number of years. So I'm not concerned about doing something different. But in your professional opinion, Bree, what other towns have done, studies that you have seen, you know, do you have any of that information that can help make an informed decision?
So there has been a lot of research done on this, and I can provide that to the commission, and they can make their own decision as to whether or not it's safe or not safe. And like Sherry said, there's research that shows both. As Lisa said, you know, the research has been refined in the last few years, according to her research. I haven't looked at those studies. I certainly will, and we'll do whatever the school wants to do for infill. We've done all the infills available. We've specified on different projects throughout the years. So,
and if I could just add that with regard to town meeting budget allocation, a reasonable question is, was it presented to town meeting that these concerns are out there? And as Bree just said, some studies show no concerns, but other studies show at least a suggestion of concern. And I think it's a fair question to ask. Did the voters at town meeting have full awareness of the studies that show potential concern? And so, you know, maybe the voters of Norton would like to revisit that and see if a little bit of extra taxpayer dollar expenditure now will address a lot of people's potential concerns. Sherry, do you have an additional statement or question?
I did want to mention that we held numerous community forums, and this was prior to COVID shutting things down. So we had in-person community forums, and we also did some virtually as well. And somebody did bring up that concern. It was addressed and discussed. I believe that was pre-COVID that was addressed back then. So somebody did bring it up, and we did discuss it and address it. So I just want to make it known that we absolutely did hold a number of community forums where townspeople came to talk about any concerns they might have had, and it was discussed.
Well, all right. It sounds like this is going to be an ongoing discussion. And along with the peer review information. So unless there are other pressing comments, potentially we can continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is January 24th.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask one more question?
Certainly.
Do we have any idea of the timeline of how all of this is going to go here? Because we were hoping to go out to bid to keep the cost down. And it just seems like we're going to kind of stall a little bit here. So I'm just wondering what a timeline might be.
Go ahead, Julie.
Well, I mean, we obviously have to go over the peer review issues with regard to, all of the elements for the explicit Wetland Protection Act concerns. And I think this material issue is going to be a problematic sticking point unless there can be some kind of a remedy. So as Lisa said, I have no direct concern because I will not have children or grandchildren playing on those fields, at least in the foreseeable future. So It's not but it's a general town concern. There are obviously many school children who will be on those fields, and there will be many parents expressing concerns as time unfolds. So, just an issue that has to be resolved in some way.
Understood. So just for clarification on the kind of process of this, is it something that you guys vote on? How does it work going forward?
Well, if there are members of the commission that feel strongly enough that this is not an acceptable material, they will decline to support the project. And then it's a question of will the majority of the commission members say, well, okay, let's take a chance and put that material on the field. And I can't predict how that's going to unfold. We're all currently 6 individuals, but potentially a 7th joining us soon.
Bree, can I just ask, it's outside our scope, but in a way it's not, because it's the concern of the people who want to put in the field. Do you have just, off the cuff, an idea of the difference would be between rubber and, say, coconut or something like that? Something that comes from the earth?
It varies widely.
Yeah, that's actually not a fair statement, because the rubber is made from fossil fuels that come from the earth as well. So
is an asbestos.
We might get it as something that was in your, they say never eat wasn't on your grandmother's kitchen table. So I mean, is things that were in your grandmother's front yard. I mean,
we're getting deep in the weeds here, because nitrites were on your grandmother's kitchen table, and I will never eat those myself. Anyway, I think maybe it's time to consider a motion for continuation of this hearing till January 24th.
I will make a motion to continue the hearing on file DEP 2501091 to the January 24th meeting of the Conservation Commission.
All right, we have a motion made by Dan Pearson, seconded by Lisa. And we're going to do a roll call vote, and this for a continuation of this hearing till the 24th of January. We'll start with Lisa and Ron for roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, and then Dan, looks like you have
Aye.
also an aye. And Carrie, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, motion carries for continuation of the hearing till January 24th. Thank you guys for participating, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now moving on to continuation of the hearings for file number 250-10-1070, notice of intent for 0 Rear Eddy Street. And the project concerns construction of common driveway and associated stormwater management for a total of 4 duplex units within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands. And do we have a representative of the applicant?
They requested a continuance.
Oh, imagine my disappointment. I wanted to have another thorny discussion tonight. Okay, so it sounds like we need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue the file number 250-1070 to the January 24th meeting of the Commission.
Motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by?
Second.
Ron. Roll call vote. We'll start with Ron and Carrie.
Aye.
Aye.
And Dan and Lisa?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll throw in an aye. So the hearing for file number 250-1070 has been continued until January 24th. Next item is request for is it a full or partial certificate of compliance for Wheaton College with
It
regard?
was a full for the conduit work.
Right. So everything has been stabilized and completed, it looks like?
Yeah, based on my observation out there, everything looks like it's in compliance with what was originally permitted.
Yeah, and I think there was, at least, I think online, I was looking at all of the pictures that were provided. So anyone want to venture a motion with regard to full certificate of compliance for file number 250-1078?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Ron for issuance of a full certificate of compliance. Roll call vote, starting with Ron and Carrie.
Aye.
All right, and then Dan Pearson and Lisa.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye as well. The motion carries. And then we have draft minutes for December 13th. I didn't see anything. Anybody have something they want to correct, add?
I have a number of edits. Page 2. Craig of Rim Engineering says Mike is trying to convert. That should say the applicant. Okay, page 3, where it says the first mention of my name, there are 2 different elevations. That should say flood zone elevations. Then that's the next mention of my name. Make sure all stones are removed upon completion of the project. It says in regards to the driveway, but it should say in regards to the temporary stabilized construction exit. Page 5. There's a general typo that really needs to be fixed. The word bordering, in bordering land subject to flooding, is not bordering like adjacent to, it's bordering, B-O-R-D-E-R-I-N-G. So if you could please make a global change so I don't have to go through all of those. Okay, so.
Wait, Lisa, where do you see that word?
Well, as an example, on page 5.
Yeah.
First paragraph, paragraph.
It's board, B-O-A-R-D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that same paragraph, the second to last sentence. So that's the closest we get to the field. And then what does this mean if you show the tennis courts? I don't know what the hell that means. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't make sense. So that's the closest you get to the field, 25 feet. If you show the tennis courts.
We can strike that.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Okay. Page 7. My first comment, could you just point out it should say points of discharges. Very bottom of page 7, second to last word, bordering land subject to flooding.
Yeah, we'll do a global change. We use we use the software to do a lot of this, so that's
Okay.
why. That's why.
Jurisdiction, correct. Okay. Page 10.
Oh, so this is voice interpreting software?
Yeah, it mixed it up.
But
We'll make
nobody's
that change.
proofing it afterwards. You need to proof it afterwards.
Yeah, it does
Right?
voice.
Yeah, so I proofed it. Obviously, I missed it, and I'll fix it going forward.
Yeah, you need to read it after it comes out.
We
right?
don't.
Okay.
But in all fairness, Lisa, we're working with, try and put the resources where they most are needed, and so
Well, I just
you know,
find it a little
the
embarrassing
meaning of
that
it
we can't
is clear.
spell
It's the voice.
I find it embarrassing that we can't spell a regulatory
Well-
jurisdictional area the right way, that's all. I mean,
All
other than that,
right,
I will let it go.
I admit we made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, I'm just
And I
saying.
have to say, you know, having been involved with medicine and using drag and dictate for much of what I had to do as far as record keeping, sometimes things just they escape.
Mhm.
You know, how we spend our resources best. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, page 10, let's see, my second comment, is the coconut, core fibers should be COIR, which is another word for coconut, instead of CORE. That's what I meant by that. Okay. Page 13. And page 13 and 14. Aerial, not like the aerials, but aerial photos is AERIAL. Brook does not have an E on the end of it, if we could look at that. My first comment on page 14. Okay, let's see, 1, 2, third line up from the bottom, it should say center line of the stream instead of central. Scott Goddard, the last one on page 14. 1, 2, 3, fourth line up. Would talk. It should say would talk over the weir, not talk. What's that? Oh, word for it. Okay. I think that was it.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we can consider a motion to accept the minutes as revised and amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes as discussed, 12, 13, 21.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by Carrie. Again, voice vote. We'll start with Ron and Carrie.
Aye.
Okay, and then Lisa and Dan Pearson.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. All right, excellent. So we have reviewed draft minutes, and now we come to a new conservation member potential. What do you got for us?
So we have an interested person. I'm waiting to receive a formal letter from them. That way the Board of Selectmen can accept and I guess inaugurate, or however they do it, appoint the person at the next meeting. Then we have received word on the Island Brook case. There was an agreement made by DEP and the applicant. So I'm guessing we should be receiving something soon, because I got correspondence that their engineer is sending over John Chesia new revisions, and hopefully they'll be able to provide that information to the commission for the February 14th meeting. That was the agreement that DEP instructed them to have. So I'm hoping that happens. We're looking forward to that. But besides that, that's really it as of right now. We're working towards, we just received the rail trail project today, which spans from Mansfield to Norton. So that's going to be on our agenda next time. And we received a couple other permit applications. So we should have some new ones coming up.
All right, and so far you're clothing the identity of the new commission potential in mystery. Is that you can't shed any light on, their interest, experience, total newbie, somebody involved with prior.
Home rubber manufacturer.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know. I don't know if I should shed any light. Carrie, do you want me to shed light on the person?
Does she want us to shed light on?
I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. If she was a recommendation from Carrie, then we're all set. We don't even need to know who it is.
I'll be totally patient because I think we're all set then. Fine.
Yep.
All right. So, any other items of?
Oh yes, just quickly, if possible, and this is it's a small matter. I wonder, Megan, if you could send out the agenda or comments, what you want to call it, and as Microsoft Word document, if you happen to do that. The reason being is because before printed out, I can sort of excise the stuff that I don't really need, like the statement on the first page and the etc.
So isn't it already in a Microsoft document, or is it?
Well, I think the last one was, but I think this one was PDF. We got the PDF in the.
So is maybe John?
It could just save a few sheets of paper for me.
Yeah, if that's what you guys prefer, I have no issue sending it as just the Microsoft.
All right, fair enough. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, so unless there are further items, we can consider a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn the January 10th meeting of the Conservation Commission.
All right, and a second.
Second.
All right, motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by Ron, and we're going to indicate aye or nay with thumb up or thumb down. I'll give a thumb up. So thank you.
Aye. Go Bulldogs.
And till next time, thank you guys.
Have a good night,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye, guys.